Hello everyone, welcome. This tutorial we are going to learn arrays of vectors. You need to know that arrays in C and C++ are named as such, but in Octave programming arrays are named as vectors. So depending on what you wish, you can call it arrays of vectors in Octave programming. Now let's study arrays and vectors. Now, in order for you you initially said that in Octave programming we don't declare the instance for an array or any variable or any identifier in Octave programming. We never declare. What we only do is the initialization. When we initialize, the Octave interpreter is going to see the value which is initialized and then assign the particular declaration to it. So let's say I have this vector. I said that in Octave programming they are mostly called vectors. So let's say I have here vector 1. So this is vector 1. Now I have vector 1. I don't declare vector 1. I will only initialize vector 1 as being equals to this. So when I open this brackets, this square bracket, they are going to be an initialization format for the array. So when I do this, I already tell what the Octave program is going to do. Is going to, when I initialize the values, Octave with this bracket, Octave is going to now declare the vector 1 as being an array. So we don't declare in Octave programming. So you have, I can enter 1, comma, I enter 2, and I enter 4. So these are the variables I'll enter. So I can do this in order for me not to see the answer, and then I say vector. So I have this. I say now vector 1. So vector 1 is shown to me. So this is one format of writing vector 1. Another similar format of writing this same vector 1 is to do this. So I go up by pressing my up arrow. When I go up, I can use this format here. So you have this format vector 1, 1, 2, these spaces and not commas. You see that I go here and I call vector now without semicolon. You see that the answers are going to, the format is going to be the same without changing. Now another format of writing still vector 1 is by placing semicolons. Yeah, let's say I place semicolon here and I place another semicolon here. So I press enter. See that the format now is in a vertical direction or a column. Here we are the horizontal direction or in a horizontal direction in a row. So these are the different formats of writing vectors. Another format that you can write vectors is now by placing down these vectors now in matrix format. We have vectors and you have matrix. If you want to write vectors now in a matrix format, what you can do is to write, I will now instead call it matrix 1. So my matrix 1, I will just open, then I do 1, 2, I will do 1, 2, and 4. What I do, I don't close the square bracket. So it's the same matrix 1 is equals to, open the square bracket 1, 2, and 4. I don't close the square bracket. I press enter and I write the next row 3, 6, 3, 6, and 7. So I have this. So these are the different matrices. So we have matrix that. So we press enter. You see that we are going to now have a 2-column matrix, a 2-row matrix, and 3-column, 2 by 3 matrix. Yeah. So here this is a vector. This is why it's only having one row or one particular column, depending on the format in which we write. And now here is a matrix. But in these tutorials, we are not going to learn matrices. We are only going to end up with vectors and how to mainly to plot the functions. So matrices are not going to be involved here. So now we have vectors here like this. Now there are other formats again to write vectors. You see that here, when I write vector here, you realize that I am writing vectors with limited numbers here. I'm writing with limited numbers when there are 3 numbers. Let's say now I want to write a vector or an array which contain multiple numbers of even 30, 40 to even 1000, 1 million. What do? I will now write this vector of this new form. Let's say vector 2. Vector 2 now is going to be equals to, I see place in my square bracket. Now what I do is that I will place the same format as in the for loop. So we know that when you want to initialize to use a for loop in C programming, what you do is that you write for, you place in bracket I, you initialize the value of I to 0 or what you want. You say for I, you place a colon like this. Then you say I, you place the last value of I. So you place the last value of I. So I less than, let's say 10. Place a colon again and say again I equals to I, or you can say I equals I plus 1, or you can say I equals to I plus plus. So this is the format you use when you want to use the for loop. Now this same format is going to, this format now, which is going to be in bracket, is going to be used now to place multiple values in a vector. So I'll place now this in the comment. Go down. Let's say I want to declare a vector which has multiple numbers from 1 to 100 spaced by 1. So what I will do is that I will use the name vector. So I have vector 2. Vector 2 is equal to, I place in a square bracket. The square bracket now, the first number I want to be in my vector is 1. Now the last number I want, so I'm going to place colon. The last number I want to be in my, I'm going to place colon. The last number I want to be in my vector is to be 100. Now the incrementation, the difference between this the representation and this representation is that the incrementation is placed between the first and the last number in the vector format. So the incrementation, I want that the incrementation is by 1. So we see that this is similar. So I equals to 0 is the first number here. So I less than 100 is the last number, but it's the insert place here at the end, and the incrementation now is placed in the middle. So we have the first number here, we have the last number here, and we have the first number here, we have the last number here, and we have the incrementation here. So now when I have this, I'm capable of I've created now a variable which is having 100 terms. I can reduce the terms, else they are going to be too much. To even, let's say first I'll use 100. So when I have this, all the terms are used here. We have the first column, the first column through 22 are going to be all this. We have the column 23 to 44 because they are too large, so it cannot be shown. So you have all these number which are given to you. So you start from 1, it will increment by 1 and then end at 100. So this is the second format of writing vectors, where the first number here is the first number in your vector, the last number here is the last number in your vector array, and then in the middle is the incrementation by 1. So another example, let's say I want still vector 2. Now I will start from 1. Now I will have an incrementation of 0.2, and then I will end at 5. So you have this. So when you have the incrementation of 0.2, you have all this incrementation. So I can do, and I end at 5. I want to end by at 5.1 as such. Now in this example, you see that it starts with 1, it increment by 0.2 and end at 5.1. But here realize that it does not actually end here with 5.1. you see that here you have a starting point of 1, you have an ending point here of 5.1, but here it does not actually end with 5.1. So it will end with a number which is smaller than 5.1, but is inside the series, and that is 5.0. So you see that this actually shows that less than or equals to 5.1. So now you see that it is not going to, the first number here is actually going to be 1, and the last number in this case is not 5.1, because the incrementation of 0.2 does not end at 5.1. 5.1 is not included. So we'll stop at a number which is less than 5.1, which is 5.0. Now this is very difficult, because if I want a case where I want that a vector should be between two values, let's say I want that vector should be between 1.0 and 4.8, and I want that they should be spaced evenly. So I want that between 1.0 and 4.8 they are spaced evenly. 1.0 must be the first term and 4.8 must be the last term. So what should I do? So in this case, I will normally use this other format here. I will use another format called, let's say I will declare now vector 3 with another format. That format will be the linspace. Now with this linspace, I'm going to place in brackets as such. So with this linspace, the first term is going to be the first term of your series you want. The second term will be the last term of your series you want, and the last term will be the number of terms you want to be included in your series. Example: if I want my first term to be 1.0, so you separate them with a comma and not with a colon in this case. I want my last term to be 4.5. Let's say my last term is 4.5, and I want that the space which exists between them is 10. So I'm going to paste 10. So what is going to happen is that this linspace is going to have 1.0 and 4.5 and evenly space all the number until there are 10 numbers. So let's see what happens. You have you have the total number of terms which are 10. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you have 10 elements. Now the first term here is going to be 1.0, the last term is going to be 4.5, and they're all going to be evenly spaced from each other. So in case where I don't want to place I want that my first term and my last term should be exactly there and all of them are evenly spaced, I will not use this format here above, but I will use here this format. But if I want an incrementation, a particular incrementation, I will use this format. So this format here is very useful in order to draw the graph of sine curve. So let's say I'm going to use the word angle. So angle here will be equals to, I'll use linspace. So we have the linspace. I want that in my angles, my first term should be 0, comma, my last term is going to be 360 degrees or 2 times pi. And I want them all to be separated 360 times. So we have 0, we have 1. Now in this case it's not 360 times. I want them to be separated into 2 times pi times. Now because it's not more 360 but it's 3.4, so we are going to write here 2 times pi times here as such. So we are going to have this. So your angle will be 0. You have this which are evenly separated with this total number of terms here. Now if I want to increase the number of terms, I can increase with this value here. So let's say I want to increase the number of terms to 360 terms. So what I will do is that I will just come to the next code. I will write here and I write 360. So these are the different terms that are going to be written in the series. So you have the first term which is 0, the last term is going to be 6.28, which is 2 times pi, and all between them are going to be different values which are going to be found. So from here we have seen the different formats to write a vector, And we say from here, thanks for your kind attention, and don't forget to subscribe and like for videos of science video makers. Thank you.